In the small, quiet town of Willowbrook, Halloween was a cherished tradition. Parents would gather to carve pumpkins with their children, streets were adorned with spooky decorations, and children, excitedly donned their costumes, would make their way through the neighborhood, trick-or-treating to their heart's content. But in 1997, something happened that changed the way we looked at Halloween forever. My name is Mark, and I was a teenager living in Willowbrook at the time. I had always loved Halloween, the chill in the air, the thrill of ghost stories, and the endless piles of candy. But that year, something sinister arrived, and it wasn't just a costume or decoration. The build-up to Halloween in Willowbrook was always filled with anticipation. As September turned to October, the town's shops and houses would be adorned with ghosts, witches, and pumpkins. The chill in the air added to the eerie atmosphere, and the anticipation of Halloween night sent a shiver down the spine of every resident. However, it was the Halloween of 1997 that would forever alter the way we viewed this beloved holiday. The story of the Witch of Willowbrook was one that had been passed down through generations. It was said that a woman accused of dark witchcraft had lived in Willowbrook centuries ago. Her name had been lost to history, but her dark deeds had not. The townsfolk, in a fit of paranoia and fear, had condemned her to a gruesome fate. She was said to have been buried in an unmarked grave deep within the forest that bordered the town. But the legend didn't end there. It was believed that she would rise from her grave on Halloween to exact revenge on the town that had condemned her. This tale, filled with dark magic, vengeance, and a sense of foreboding, captivated the imaginations of Willowbrook's youth. It was the kind of legend that was whispered about during sleepovers and around campfires, but in 1997, that legend would take on a chilling life of its own. Halloween night was unusually chilly that year, and the moon cast an eerie, pale glow over Willowbrook. My friends and I had spent weeks discussing what our costumes would be and devising a plan for the night's trick-or-treating adventure. Little did we know that our innocent plans would lead us down a path of terror. As the sun began to set, we gathered at my house, a group of excited teenagers fueled by the prospect of a thrilling Halloween night. The woods behind our neighborhood, the very woods that hid the witch's grave, beckoned to us like a dark secret waiting to be unraveled. We dared each other to venture into the forest, to see if the legend was true or merely a product of overactive imaginations. Armed with flashlights, candy bags, and a mix of apprehension and curiosity, we plunged into the woods. The trees seemed to close in around us as we moved deeper into their shadows. The air grew colder with every step, and the rustling of leaves and hooting of owls created an unsettling soundtrack to our journey. The path we followed was vague, a collection of worn trails and the occasional markers we had placed during daylight excursions. Our heartbeats quickened, and the thrill of the unknown began to weigh heavily on us. We knew we were close to the supposed location of the witch's grave when we stumbled upon a clearing in the forest. The clearing was bathed in pale moonlight, and in its center lay the sinister mound of dirt, marked only by a crude, weathered wooden cross. The symbols etched into the cross were unfamiliar to us, but they carried an undeniable aura of something malevolent. It was at that moment that we realized we had entered a world where the line between legend and reality was blurred. And then, we saw her. Emerging from the shadows, a figure dressed in tattered robes, her presence sent a shiver down our spines. The moonlight illuminated her face, just enough to reveal a pair of hollow, soul-piercing eyes. Her hair was long and matted, and her bony, gnarled hand reached out, beckoning us closer. Fear held us in its grip as we watched in horrified fascination. We were paralyzed, unable to move, unable to escape the nightmare unfolding before us. Her eerie, ghostly presence surrounded us, and in that dreadful moment we knew that the legend was no mere tale. One by one, my friends began to vanish. As the Witch of Willowbrook pointed at them, they dissolved into thin air, their terrified cries silenced instantly. I watched, helpless, as my best friends, the people I had grown up with, were snuffed out like candles in the wind. The last thing I heard was the witch's eerie, mocking laughter. With all my remaining strength, I turned to flee, to escape the clutches of this malevolent force. The forest seemed to conspire against me, with branches reaching out to grab, roots snaking across my path, and the mist thickening to obscure my vision. Finally, with a burst of adrenaline-fueled strength, I burst through the tree line and stumbled into the familiar streets of Willowbrook. I was drenched in sweat, my breath ragged, and my mind reeling from the horrors I had witnessed. I tried to tell my story to the townspeople, but they dismissed it as the product of an overactive imagination, the wild tale of a teenager seeking attention on Halloween night. No one believed me, and my friends were never seen again. As the years went by, Halloween in Willowbrook lost its magic. The streets were no longer filled with children in costumes, and the pumpkin carving tradition faded away. The legend of the Witch of Willowbrook became a taboo subject, a story that parents whispered to their children to keep them from venturing into the woods. Even now, in my adult years, I can't escape the memories of that Halloween night. The Witch of Willowbrook is no longer a legend. She is a haunting reality that lives on in my nightmares. I sometimes find myself waking in a cold sweat, hearing her eerie laughter in the dark. So, as you celebrate Halloween this year, remember that not all legends are just stories. Sometimes, the darkness that dwells in the shadows is all too real, and it may be closer than you think. The Witch of Willowbrook still lurks, waiting for her next victims in the inky blackness of the woods, and the night when the line between the living and the dead is at its thinnest. Beware, for the witch may choose you as her next target, and her eerie laughter may become the soundtrack of your nightmares, just as it has for me.